There's so much to say with regards to this. There's so much to go into, but this is literally just a summary of the addendum changes. I am a wealth of information when it comes to condominium purchasing. So please, outside of this video, if you own a condo or you're interested in purchasing a condo in South Florida and you need to chat with me some more, my information is out there. It is easy to find me on all social media. My name is Avril K Cherasard and my phone number is 305-417-9242. So before this video gets into 20 minutes, an hour, I'm going to stop and just give a brief summary of what's happening. Okay, here goes. When the Champlain Towers in Surfside crumbled, killing masses of people, everyone jumped in. Legislators, politicians, real estate professionals, engineers, everyone came together and we decided that there is something that needs to be done to ensure that that does not happen again. One thing that was recognized is that a lot of associations delay repairs that are major structural repairs, and that's why things like a building collapse happened, because associations and owners sometimes don't want to fund these repairs. New law came into place that states that these structural issues need to be inspected and funded, and everyone who's buying into these communities need to know the condition of the structures they're buying and the plans being made in the budget to fix them. The new changes to the addendum address these documents, which are called the Reserve Study and the Milestone Report, so that buyers can be consumers who are informed about the condition of the space they're buying. This new addendum is going to be effective on March 20th. There may be changes based on legislative meetings on March 7th and March 27th, but for now, those changes to our addendum take effect on March 20th, 2024. These structural reserve studies and milestone reports are due to all associations in condominiums that are 3 stories or more, and their deadline to be completed is December 31st, 2024. It's Avril K Cherasard, South Florida's savviest agent, who's also a property adjuster. You see my hazard vest. I'm out on a site doing some commercial work. An additional layer added by legislation is that you will have to provide information about how your reserves are being funded. One of the main things that Champlain opened our eyes to is how many associations are kicking the reserve budget down the road. We know we need to repair this, but we can't afford to. Let's only budget this much for this repair and we'll deal with that later. Champlain turned that on its back. Association and their owners can no longer agree to ignore critical repairs to the structure, because as you can see, neglecting to maintain the condition of your building can lead to lives lost. We don't want that again in South Florida. We want safe, secure communities for our clients. So the gist of it all, the associations are now required to obtain 2 reports by the end of the year in 2021. Those 2 reports are the Milestone Inspection Report, which reports the adequacy of the structural components of a condo building for life and safety purposes. The second report is the Structural Integrity Reserve Study, and that's a budget conversation that shows how much reserve funds these condominium associations are putting in place to fund major repairs and to replace the common areas of the condo. Had these studies and these reserve fund reviews been taken up in advance, many of the issues we find with condominiums and their integrity would have been avoided. So the rider was revised, and this is the rider that me as an agent would submit with a buyer's offer to the condominium. The seller is obligated to provide the milestone inspection report if it was done, and the structural integrity survey if it was done upon request, using this language in the addendum. The reserve studies and providing the reports are at the expense of the seller and their condominium association. Before a buyer closes on a property, if these reports and surveys are complete, they are legally due to the buyer of that condominium so that they can review and they can determine if they feel confident and comfortable buying in that condo community. So, what are the rules? After entering into a contract, the buyer is owed a summary of the milestone inspection report and a copy of the reserve study report if it's completed. So let's break it down. Which associations are going to have to do this? Because it's not going to be everybody who is structured under a condominium association who's going to owe these reserve and SIRS reports. Here's the reading of the language. Associations are required to obtain a milestone inspection for each building that is 3 stories or more in height. If the building is either 30 years of age or more, regardless, or if the building is 25 years of age or more and located within 3 miles of a coastline. Now, what we exclude in this is if there are 1, 2, and 3 family buildings with 3 habitable stories or less above ground. This reserve study and this milestone inspection, each condominium that falls under the criteria we mentioned is due to have these performed and in place by December 31st, 2024. Now, I already know of several condominium communities that have decided to take on this structural report in advance, and I say kudos to those associations for taking a step before they needed to take the step. They will know the condition of their buildings, they will be able to fund the repairs and the replacements properly, and anyone buying in those associations, you are winning. Just for the mere fact that knowledge is power and you want to know the condition of the condominium you're purchasing. So let's talk about what associations will be getting themselves into when they get a milestone inspection. So the milestone inspection will be performed by a Florida engineer or an architect, and it will be done on the habitable and non-habitable areas of the building. That's the stairways and the walkways and the places where you don't live but you pass by and you use frequently. And of course, the actual condominiums that are in the project. There will be 2 phases. There's a mandatory visual inspection to make sure that it's safe and adequate in terms of the structural components of the building. And phase 2 will be to determine if there is any substantial deterioration noted in phase 1 and to test further any possible issues that may happen when they reviewed phase 1. The inspector is then required to complete the milestone inspection report and provide a summary to the association and to the building official who has jurisdiction over the condo. Again, the milestone inspection report is to do several things: identify structural deterioration, recommend repairs, identify any health and safety issues, and describe what needs further inspection. Okay? This is the document that any potential buyer would be entitled to. And you'd think that these kind of documents are already in place for any association to let somebody know the condition of the space they're buying into, but it's not very specific, which is why legislation has stepped in to make sure buyers are receiving information about the structural integrity of a property they are buying in. So who does the shoe fit? Who's the person who's necessarily going to be involved in this condo rider addendum and the changes that it has caused in the processing of an offer for purchase of a condo? So the buyer is entitled to a copy of the summary of the milestone report, and this helps every party to be informed. The seller is expected to provide this report or make sure that their association lets us know it's not 12/31/2024. We haven't done it yet, or it is done and we will provide it A, B, C, D, but definitely before the closing date for the buyer. Okay, the second report is the Structural Integrity Reserve Study. So when you've done your review and you've determined the components of the association that needs to be taken care of, you now have to have a conversation about money. Money makes the world go round when it comes to taking care of business. And so the associations who will be required to get this reserve study are those that have existed before July 2022, which are controlled by the building, which is 3 stories or higher. If you've been in existence before July 1st, 2022, and your unit is controlled for the building that is 3 stories or higher, and there are owners living in the building, actual owner occupants in the building. What's going to be in this structural reserve study? It funds future repairs for major areas of the building, and that's common areas and living areas as controlled by the association board. This includes the roof, the load-bearing walls, the floor, the foundation, fireproofing, windows, anything where the expense is above $10,000. And if these items fail to maintain the integrity that's expected, they need to be added to the budget, to the reserve fund, and funded by HOA association fees and assessments. I'm going to speak on that again. These are going to be identified and they need to be added to your condominium budget so that you can be assessed. If you have not already reserved funds, they will be assessed. Bottom line, 9 times out of 10, your homeowners association, if you live in a condo that's 3 stories or more, will have an increase in the assessment. Condos are going to get more expensive to live in. Point blank period. They're going to be safer. They're going to be more expensive to live in. Okay? So again, those are 2 reports that are due to you. And the buyer is entitled to a copy of this report. Remember, they're entitled to the first study, the milestone inspection, and the buyer is also entitled to the SIRS report that is reflecting how much money you have to put in reserves for future repairs of these either dilapidated or about to be dilapidated structures in your condominium community. I am the self-coined condo queen of South Florida. I have listed and sold enough condos to have a feel for generally what goes on in the background of receiving reports, getting factual statements, inspecting condos, inspecting common areas just to see if you like what you're buying into. Never before has such a thorough and detailed description of what's going on with the building been provided for me as a buyer's agent or even as a listing agent when it comes to exactly what's going on in the community. Only of late we're seeing communities that are undergoing these structural integrity surveys. I'm getting information about the condition of the space because they've done it and they provide it. Also, lenders are also including additional forms. They're lender forms that they're sending when you go under contract to purchase a condo. And some of the questions that are answered in the structural reserve study and in your milestone inspections, they're asking, are there any areas that need improvement or repair in the common areas that you've neglected, that you have planned to build? Are you planning to increase assessments? All of this affects affordability for the buyer. So they want to know, can this buyer truly afford this place today, a year from now, 3 years from now, when you're taking on all these additional costly expenses?